Hey guys, we'll get started here in just a moment. I'm going to put a link to a quick survey or quick form in the chat. If you could take a second and open a browser and just complete that real quick, it's just a sample form that I use in training that we'll look at today. So if we have a few more responses in there, that'll just help us be able to look at data a little differently. It's a form just on collecting T-shirt size and names. You don't have to give me your real information. You can even make up a name, but if you could paste that in a browser real quick, we'll get started in about a minute. Thanks, guys. Glad you're here. All right, everybody, welcome. My name is Chris Persons, and I'm a management analyst with the Kern County Superintendent of Schools. Normally, I work in local control and accountability, which means I'm working with LCAP and differentiated assistance and our continuous improvement project. But in these very non-traditional times, I've been very happy to join this training team. So if you've attended some of these other trainings in previous weeks, you were probably expecting to see Rochelle Fambro. Rochelle does a fabulous job. She's an amazing ed tech teacher. Unfortunately, we've needed Ray, pardon me, to take over a few different curriculum design pieces with our ELD students. So she is still providing some support in these classes, but myself and Cameron Gwynn, who's my partner in training, will be taking over most of these. So, hats off to Rochelle. She's given me a whole bunch of great stuff to pick up on. And as a self-appointed Google Uber user, I feel very comfortable walking you through beginning and advanced tools in Google. So prior to coming to the county office, I spent 20 years in the Kern High School District. And one of the things I was pleased to get to do was work with some amazing teams of teachers and implement the Google Classroom suite and the Google tools and all of the platform tools at a couple of different schools. So really excited to be with you today. Before we get too far into things, I just wanted to share again, this is the advanced forms training. I'm going to click by a lot of the beginner stuff. So if you have questions, please, there's right now 15 of us on the line. Please make sure you're muted and drop that in the chat. I'll pause periodically. The format of this training is going to be, I'll go over a tool and then I'm going to stop. I'm going to let you click at live time. We can ask questions in the chat, and that's when I'll be checking in with the chat to be able to answer questions as well. But again, we're going to be skipping over a lot of that basic stuff. So if you missed the basic training, please stay. I guarantee you'll still pick stuff up, but that's kind of how we're going to proceed. So we've got 3 goals here today. First of all, by the time we're done here, the first one is you're going to know the advanced toolbar options, and you're going to be exposed to some of those advanced tools. Number 2, we talked about this morning kind of the beginning level or entry level questions that you can put in surveys and in forms. This time we're going to go into some of the more advanced ones that are a little bit more challenging to set up, but also can give you some robust feedback. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about how you manipulate our grab add-ons. And I'm going to show you one that I really like, especially in forms when we're thinking about advanced users. So that's where we're going to go from here. So I'm going to jump in and share my screen here. Give me 1 second, friends. There we go. And let me just move my visitor window over here. There, and I want to open chat real quick. Apologies, guys. Some of this stuff you just kind of have to do live time when you first get into present mode here. So, all right, now I can see your chat as well. So again, please do not hesitate to put things into chat. The more questions, the better. I'm going to maximize my screen here. And so I'm on my KCSOS forms. This is the form that I asked you guys to fill out. So far, 17 people. Thank you very much. Again, that link is in the chat. If you wouldn't mind jumping in there and filling that out, that would really help. So, all right. So again, we're diving in here. If you don't already have a form open, please open one. And again, to do that, I would just go to my drive and click on new here in the top left corner, click on more and open up Google Forms. Again, we're going to kind of go step by step, and then I'm going to stop and let you guys talk and ask questions. By the way, I mentioned earlier, my partner in training, Cameron Gwynn, if you were with us this morning, you'll notice that Cameron was with me. We were tag teaming this. We've got double stacked up trainings this afternoon. So Cameron is working on an admin training, and he will most likely join us in about a half an hour. And he'll be able to help man chat at that point. But until then, it'll just be me. So again, I'll do my best to keep up on chat. All right, friends. So first thing, we think about the advanced questions. So I'm going to go down here to one of my questions. Actually, I'll just use my first name. Better yet, I think I'll add a new question. So I'm going to add a new question in here that I can mess with a little bit. And where you select, of course, your different kind of questions is right here under the drop down for questions. Now, this morning, we talked about short answer, paragraph, multiple choice, check boxes, and drop down. So I'm not going to talk about those. I want to jump down here to linear scale, multiple choice grid, etc. So let's start with the linear scale. So the best way I can think of to explain linear scale is, especially if you put on your research hat, I think about, the Likert scale questions. So if you're asking a question, how satisfied were you with the training provided by KCSOS? And, maybe 1 is not satisfied at all, and 2 is somewhat satisfied, 3 is satisfied, 4 is very satisfied, and 5 is, I don't know, completely satisfied. So it's a where people can select a range of responses. So to do that in Google, if I type my question in here, let's see, let's put, how would you rate your satisfaction with today's training? So I get my question in there, and let's say I want 1 to be very unsatisfied. And let's say I want 5 to be very satisfied. And of course, you can obviously select your own titles. Boy, no pressure when you're typing on a Zoom, right? All right. And once I have my question there, now I'm going to be flipping back and forth between what students or participants would see and what you create. So, so here's my linear scale. I've got my question in. What does that look like to our folks? I'm going to click up here in the top right on preview. It's going to open a new window, and you'll see that. So again, to check what your survey looks like, you're going to see your question up here at the top, and then it won't label every single of these 5 options, but it does kind of give the scale between 1 and 5. I will say also that you can change the number of options you have here. So you can do a scale of 1 to 10, you can do a scale of 1 to 3, 1 to 4, etc. I've always found in my research, it's always better to have an odd number than an even number, because then people can land right in the middle sometimes. That's a weird thing, but you can change the range just by adjusting that here. So, and you could start with 0 or 1 on the left side, and you could go all the way up to 10 on the right side. So let's do that. Let's make it let's make it a 0 to 10 scale. And again, then I'm just going to click on my big eye over here, and it's going to open up a new window. And now we're going to see I have all these options. So when I think about using a linear scale like this, I think be very thoughtful and intentional about the number of options that you leave open, because I think that really is a key piece to people being able to answer with accuracy. So, if you're asking a question about if you liked something, say the training, a scale of 1 to 10 may be too many options. Hey, I'm getting a question in the chat here. Somebody was asking if this was the Canvas admin training. No, Cameron is hosting the Canvas admin training, and I'm going to put that number in the chat right now. And I'll just put this out for everybody. If you were looking for the admin training, Cameron is over in that one right now. Let me just paste this in here. And if you open zoom.us and hit join a meeting and put that number in, you will see my friend Cameron. So sorry about the distraction there. And certainly sorry that we landed in the wrong meeting there. I apologize about that. All right, so back to our scale question here. So just be careful. 10 can be too many options. Sometimes 0 throws kids, especially with our littles. Just kind of depends. I'm going to close this and go back to the form itself. So again, you can see how different that looks if you maybe go 1 to 3. And again, thinking about who you're using or who's using the survey, and really what information you're trying to get. So So I'm going to pause there real quick. You've got a survey or you got a form open. I hope you are clicking along. I would say go ahead and let's spend a moment and I'll pause and address anything in the chat. If anybody has any questions about how you would add a linear scale. So again, I would encourage you right now very strongly, hit the plus sign right up here, add a question, make it a linear scale, start messing around with the fields a little bit. Nobody else is going to see this. This is just your playground, your sandbox, if you will. So I'll pause for just maybe 2 minutes and let you guys kick the tires, and I'll watch chat if we've got any questions. So be right back. I guess I was on mute that whole time. Too bad. It was the most powerful, impactful speech I've ever given. Thank you for the reminder, my friend. I appreciate that. What I was going to say, or what I did say just to myself and my family, apparently, is I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so I'm assuming that things are going well. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next type of question. So thank you very much. All right, so I'm going to add a new question here. I'm going to leave my linear scale in here just for kicks and giggles. I'm going to add a new question. So now with my new question down here, it always defaults to multiple choice, but I want to slip down here and I want to go to the multiple choice grid. So there's two grid options here, one the multiple choice grid and one the checkbox grid. And of course, they're very similar to the options above where you have a multiple choice question or a checkboxes question. So the similarity, the similarity in the title is very important. So when you have a multiple choice grid, which I'll demonstrate here in a minute, the user can pick one answer per question. When you have a checkbox grid, the participant or the user can check multiple answers or multiple selections. So depending on what you're trying to assess, if you're asking a binary question where there is a right or there is one right answer, you're probably going to check multiple choice. If you're trying to gather some information where perhaps there's more than one right answer, or you're trying to ascertain preferences or things, you might then want to use the checkbox grid. So just make sure you're picking the right one. I'm going to start with multiple choice grid. And you'll see that right away I have two options over here. So I have a row option and I have a column option. So the row is going to name, the left to right rows from top to bottom. It's going to name each row. And then the column will have an opportunity to name the columns on this grid. So what I'm going to do, just for the sake of ease, I'm just going to number my rows. And you can see I just click on there. I'm just going to number them in. You could put, whoops, I had that one already. This would normally be some sort of text. And from our earlier training, remember, if you have the names of your rows and columns in another document, you can cut and paste and just drop that in as well. So column number one, I'm going to, for my columns, I'm going to do like a letter format for my columns. We're going to go B and then C. And again, this would normally be titles of information you want to get as opposed to just letters, but I want to throw something in here to be able to just show it quickly. So again, I'm on a multiple choice grid. So potentially on the rows, I would think I would have the specific questions that I'm asking. On the columns, potentially possible answers. And I'm going to click up here in the top right, and I'm going to click on the big I. And so we can take a look at this. So remember when I set up my multiple choice, I had five rows. So here's my 5 rows. And here's my 5 columns of potential answers. Again, if I had real questions, you'd see their words here. But please notice I can only check on any row. So each row is potentially a question or a prompt. I can only select one option on each row. I can't do multiple options because I chose the multiple choice grid. But I can ask 5 or 6 questions at one time. So if you've got a series of questions that all potentially have the same answer or the same bank of answers, and you want to get your kids to be able to answer a number of questions and not go through that fatigue of, having 5 different windows pop up for questions, the multiple choice testing grid can be a great tool, because kids, especially if it's like-minded content, kids can take a look and really kind of consider their answers, and they can change them and select different options as they go through those prompts. But again, the limitation is only one selection per row. So each row has to be a separate prompt. Okay. So I'm going to go back here real quick to my other questions, and I'm going to change this now from a multiple choice grid. I'm going to change it now to a checkbox grid. Now, I'm not going to add a new question. You could, but by changing the format, please notice it kept all of my titles for me. But now you can see up here, this is a checkbox grid, and I want to take a look at it. And you can see here now, I've got my same titles. And again, these numbers, imagine these are prompts or questions or categories that you want answers on. But now I can select multiple on each row. So again, depending on what you're trying to assess and how you're trying to assess it. So I'm going to go back to the form real quick. The other use, I think, for the checkbox and multiple use or multiple choice grid, pardon me, it's so helpful when you want to have questions about one particular category. So for instance, if I was a science teacher and I wanted to do a series of questions on ions, I could, list what it is up here in the question title, and then each of these could be a factor or category or, excuse me, or a piece of information about ions. And then across the top in the columns could be a different function or benefit or habit or product that particular piece has. And then when I come over here to actually look at the test, or pardon me, to look at the question, then I would see the explanation here in the question, so you can really kind of frame in their thinking. And again, checkboxes, you have this multiple option as opposed to just one option. All right, I'm going to pause right there. Let's see, is there a limit? I'm checking on the chat here. Is there a limit on how many columns and rows there are? So I have used this for up to 20. I've not gone past 20. So actually, if one of you wants to jump on and see if there is a limit and share in the chat, that would be great. But I will share with you this. The problem when you get too many lines is the view. So if I go back to my survey here, you can see here I've got 7 options and it gets pretty tight. It's going to really start to compact things with more lines. So I'm not aware necessarily that there is a limit. I'm sure there is, but I would always want to be toggling back and forth between the creation side and the viewing side to make sure that it is viewable for kids. Because as you can imagine, so let me see if I go here, let me grab just some text from my outline here just so we can see it a little bit differently. So if I paste in here, I'm going to erase these options real quick just for a moment. And I'm going to paste in this. So let's say we change the name of the rows to this text. And again, I'm just literally grabbing points out of my outline, guys. So it's not going to make any sense. But what I want to show is the scalability. I'm going to delete these for a moment. And let's paste in these options. And now if I go to take a look at it, so you'll see it scales the text a little bit. So you want to be careful. Like on the left side here, I don't have a lot of words. This isn't a full question or a full prompt because it gets really packed up really fast. And same thing here. This 4th prompt has got a lot of words, so it's scaling it up, but it can be difficult to read. So I would want to be careful about that just to make sure that, again, you're looking at the experience that the user of the form is going to have through that process. I'm going to close all these different options that I've got here real quick. I got tab mania going on. So that is the difference between the multiple choice grid and the checkbox option. So again, I'm going to switch back to multiple choice. One of the things I love about Google, and especially these 2 options, is that if you scale between multiple choice grid and checkbox grid, it's going to keep all of your column and row titles, which is really great. So you're not necessarily having to start over. So I can go to multiple choice and it'll have the same thing for me. I can hit the eye to take a look at it. And now you can see instead of checkboxes, I have these circles and I can only pick one per line or per prompt. So Let me jump back here real quick, guys. So I love that it keeps that, so you can kind of toggle and see which one you like, and you don't have to necessarily retype the whole thing. Same is true, by the way, when you're in multiple choice or check boxes and drop down. So for instance, if I go down here, I'm going to show you a different question here. So here's my shirt size question. I have it set up right now as a multiple choice. If I change it to a drop down, it keeps all of my options in there. So same piece when we think about the check boxes. So, okay, so I'm going to pause for a minute and go on mute. And I would really encourage you guys to, again, who cares what the titles of the rows and the columns are, but get in there and kick around a little bit and just see what that looks like. Toggle back and forth between your form view here that I have now and the actual view of the assignment, or pardon me, of the form when somebody is taking it. And we'll spend just a couple of minutes. I want you to be comfortable switching between those two before we go on to our next piece. So I'll pause here. And again, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat as we go. All right, Joanna, let's see. Is there a limit to how many? Oh, you're at 100 rows and it's still going. Wow, that's impressive. That is a lot of data, right? Good deal. Thanks for checking that out. I appreciate that, Joanna. All right, guys, I don't see any questions in the chat, so I'm going to assume that you're kind of comfortable with that piece. And I want to show you some of the advanced tools that we have in each section. So again, this is a more advanced class, so I won't walk through everything in this toolbar, but I do want you to notice that I have selected this section here, and you know I've selected it because this blue indicator over here, and my toolbar has come up here on the right side, this floating toolbar that follows me whatever section I'm in. The left side is going to get this landmark indicator, and then the right side I'm going to see my my different toolbar pieces. So we talked about the plus add a question, and we talked about adding a title and description, and we talked about adding a section down here at the bottom in the earlier training. I want to circle back and look at these other three options real quick. Now that we have looked at the different types of questions. Oh, sorry, before I do that, I apologize. I missed two types of questions. Guys, I apologize. Let me go back here. Let me come down here, and I'm going to add a question here so I get a blank or a new question. So I apologize, guys. Back here at the bottom, so we went through all of these different options, but these bottom two, date and time. So date and time are often a piece that you want to throw into a survey or a form for one reason or another. There's a way on the backside to just automatically note when somebody completes it, but think about it with forms. You might be using this for, say, parent conferences. You know, what date and what time would you like to select from these options? So you could print those options and have them do a multiple choice, or if you're looking for them to enter the item, then you would use the date and time function. So if I click on this date function here, it's going to ask me what format. So I'm in month, day, year, and I'm going to say select appointment date. Okay, and now I'm going to go over here on the big I in the top right corner, and let's take a look, and you'll see here my select date is probably down here a little farther. Here we go, select appointment date. So here now the calendar pops up automatically, and now they can select that date. So the benefit to this, if I'm being honest, guys, is that when you put out, at least my experience in a form, when you put out, hey, put the date here, sometimes you get European where it's day, day, month, month, year, year. Sometimes you get the American version, which is month, month, day, day, and then 4-digit year. Sometimes you'll get type out May 4th. Sometimes you'll get Monday, May 4th, 2000. There could be misspellings. And the challenging part of that is when you're on the backside looking at the data, if you're trying to sort to find out how many conferences you have requested for May the 4th, if there's 7 different formats for that date, it's a real mess on the backside, and it's not going to be nearly as helpful as you had hoped it would be when you started by using a form. So, let's see. Let me look in chat here real quick. Can we do date and time in the same question? They have to be in different questions. So let me go back to my side here. So what you could do, what I would generally do with this is, honestly, they'd be up at the top, right? So here's, you got your appointment date, and to move it, I'm just gonna just hold my cursor down here on that grid, and I can slide it all the way to the top. So I'm gonna want people to add their name and then select the appointment date, and then I'll scroll back down here. This is my new question that I added. I'm gonna make this time, and again, I'm gonna move it back up toward the top. There we go. I'm going to do it after date, and now we'll hit the big eye in the sky here, and you'll see again. So they put out their name, and now they can select the date, and then same thing here with time. They can enter the time, hours and minutes, and select AM or PM. So those do have to be 2 separate questions, but usually that's not a huge deal as we come through, you know, and you're trying to get that kind of landscaping information. So great question. Thank you for asking that. Okay, so let me go back here. We were going to look at the additional tools. Sorry about that pause there in those questions, but now we've addressed all those questions. So there are some great tools over here that I didn't cover in the beginner training, just because when you're first getting off the ground, I think it's important just to get the, you know, how do you really make this function? But there's some fabulous tools here. So if you have a survey or a form that you've used before, and you want to bring in certain questions, so you could go to that survey and just make a copy and change the title and all that. But what if you only want a few questions or part of the survey? You're going to click here on Import Questions. It's going to go to your drive, and it's going to open up everything in your drive that is a form. So here's where you could, and you could search it right up here, but here's where you can grab those questions and pull them back in. So you, from this menu, so let's say I wanted to grab something here from our continuous improvement survey. I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to hit enter. And here are all the questions on the right side. And any questions I want to put in, I can just select here. And you'll see down here, it tells me, it gives me a confirmation. Are these a number of questions you want to import? It's going to bring over for you the exact wording of the question, the type of question that it was, and all of the prompts or answers that you put in. So if it's a grid, it's going to bring you rows and columns. If it's multiple choice, it's going to bring you all the multiple choice, the date, the time, whatever it is. It brings it over exactly and drops it in here for you. So you don't have to take the whole form. You can just grab some questions. I'm not actually going to import these because it's just going to make a mess. But you can see once you open it here in this navigation window, you select it. I've got 5 things checked, so there's 5 import questions here. I can just select or deselect those questions to be able to bring them in. So in terms of time saver, that is a great piece for forms that you can just grab it and go. If you want to put an image in, if we scroll down here a little bit farther, this sample form has an image put in it. So if you want to put an image in, you certainly can. You just hover over the question. Let me pick a question here. I'll pick my time question and click on Add Image. It's going to bring you that search window and a lot of options here on how you can get an image in. So if you hit Browse here, it's going to open up your files, and you can bring in something if you have it saved to your desktop or to your personal files. You can activate your camera. It's going to say, hey, are you sure? You want me to? Hey, there I am. You can also paste in a URL if there's something out there on the web. If you want to go to your Google Photo account, this is specifically linked with your Google Photos. And here you can go right to your Google Drive, and you'll see all the folders in your Google Drive, and you can navigate that way. And here is a Google image search where you can search for images. You also can go out and just do a Google search. The nice part about this search, and this is especially great with our kids, anything in your Google search has been verified that it is not protected by copyright. So you can put it in without having to worry about violating any copyright rules. So That's the benefit of doing it from within here. So you can add any image you want. So let's say I want to add, I don't know, just because I'm jonesing for football after the draft. You can grab an image here and drop it in. And that's exactly what we did with the sample image you saw lower. Same thing is true with the videos right here. I'm going to click on that video, and it's going to give me two options here. First of all, I'm sure you're probably aware, but the reason it is dropped in, or YouTube is the default, is Google owns YouTube, which means they're both fully integrated with each other. So if you have a video already on YouTube, you can search it here, or you could paste the link in here. So let me open another tab here real quick, guys. And let me hit my waffle and just go to YouTube. And let's say, for instance, let's say I did a video on YouTube. Here, we'll go to my videos. And you know what? In honor of Star Wars Day, May the 4th, let's say I want to select my Darth Vader Devo that I did for my high school youth group. I'm just going to grab the link right up here. And then I'm going to go back to my form. And I'm going to paste the link, the YouTube link right here. And hit search. It's going to bring it up, and I can select it, and then I can drop it in. I won't actually drop it in here, but you can grab it from YouTube and bring it in that way. One thing I neglected to show, you're not limited to YouTube. YouTube is the one that is most integrated because they own YouTube, but you also, if you have a video on a different URL platform that is not YouTube, you can paste it here, and it will grab it and embed it for you in the quiz, or pardon me, in the forms. So great tool there with video. So with that, guys, let's see. I have a couple of questions. I'm going to answer questions and then pause for a minute. Again, I would really encourage you to grab the import option here and kick it around a little bit, practice dropping some things in and see what that looks like. Grab some photos and just drop those in and just kind of practice that navigation. Same thing with videos right here. And I will take a look at questions and then we'll move on. Let's see. I tried to put a different video URL and it wouldn't work on a form from TeacherTube. Okay, interesting. So I'll be honest with you, Joanna, I'm not sure how fully integrated. Let me go back to the video option here. So I've always used stuff off of YouTube. I would imagine that perhaps there are some other platforms that have some embedding limitations. So that might be one of them. So if it won't work from TeacherTube, if you can find that on YouTube or something, you might have a little bit better luck. By the way, the other benefit to importing and embedding your video here is we all know what happens when our kids go out on YouTube. They find things that they're interested in watching, like a Darth Vader Devo, and all of a sudden now they're off on this wild goose chase, or if you don't have an ad blocker up, they're watching commercials, which may or may not be age appropriate. When you embed your video here, you shut all of that down. So as I think about distance learning, and especially the fact that the teacher isn't over their shoulder, to be able to say, close that tab, let's go, or using that, different management software to do those sorts of things, then it makes it really, really difficult to prevent that. So anytime you can embed that video, embed that picture, and give that streamlined, seamless experience, I think the better off we are. So great question, though. Let's see. My district has videos blocked. Okay, so if your district has all videos blocked, then you probably won't be able to use this tool unless you are creating it out in your own Google sign-in. But then I'm not sure if your Google platform will allow you to link something that's from outside. So you'll have to talk to your teams about that. They may have all videos blocked from websites, but perhaps there might be some Exchange services that you've subscribed to that perhaps you could embed videos. But if that's the case, or pardon me, if that's not the case, then yeah, you might not be able to embed videos. And I'm sorry about that, but that's a local decision. Let's see, from M. Penny, can you embed a video or import a photo within the section of a question? So how you would do that, so it's kind of like over here. So I think what you're asking is, can I have a video and then can I have the question like right below it in the same block? So, and when we have, like, for instance, we have our t-shirt preview right here, you'll notice that there's no option for me to add a question here at all, or a type of question, because I pulled the video in. So what I would want to do is down here at the bottom, like, let me add a question. So what I would want to do is have the image here and then have the question or questions right below it, or it could be a video as well. And so let's call this a picture question. And the reason I say that is because if you put it right below, then I go over here to my big eye in the sky and it opens up. I'll scroll down and you'll see the first thing. Then if I can't have it all in one, I want to make sure the picture or video is first, so they have to see or watch that, and then the questions are right below it. So you can just, it's a matter of, they can't live in the same square like this picture is, but you can guide the experience so that they see that first, and then they're answering questions immediately after that. So great question, Penny. Sorry, there isn't a better answer, but it would be great if that could all be one block, but you just have to kind of, it just kind of lives then in how you lay out the survey. All right, I'm going to close these windows down and close down YouTube. Not seeing any questions in chat. I am going to pause for a minute though, and just really encourage everybody to spend a few minutes and go and import questions and spend a few minutes and add images and add video and just kind of see how that feels. Because while we're on together, if something goes sideways, this is the time to throw it in the chat, and hopefully I can help address that for you. So I'm going to pause for just a minute, and I'll watch for questions, or just a few moments, pardon me, and I'll watch questions and see where we go from there. Okay, is there a way to copy and reuse a form without losing the original data? Allison, yes, there is. And in fact, while people are kicking tires, I will show you how to do that. So when you make a copy of a form, so again, I'm back here in the form itself. I'm not on the big eye in the sky right here. Over on the far right side, I call this the skinny snowman. Some people call it the hot dog. I'm going to come over here and say make a copy. So when I select make a copy, it's going to take everything in that form, all the questions, all the prompts, any video, anything, and make a copy of it. But it's not going to copy the responses. So you keep the responses and you make a new empty shell. So I'll hit make a copy. And like everything in Google, you're going to get this window. What do you want to call it? I'm going to leave it copy of, just because it will help us as we're looking to know which one we're in, because I want to show you some things. It'll tell me where I want to drop it in. And if I've added collaborators, I can share it with the same people. I've only got Cam in there, so I'm going to leave that off. But this is important, guys, to know. So if I'm making a copy of this and I'm going to use it, say, as a collaboration tool with a different team, I may not want to share it with all the same people. So here's an opportunity to make sure this is where you can control, at least automatically. You can always add collaborators, but so I'm going to hit OK. You'll notice up here on the top, I've got a new window powering up, and copy of KCSOS forms comes up. And the first thing to notice is the responses. There's 0 responses. And you'll see here, it even says I click on the responses tab and it says waiting for responses. So if I click back to my original survey, you'll see those 17 responses are still intact. So the long answer to your question, can you reuse a survey? Yes, you can. You make a copy of it. Or there is one other option if you want to use, so let's say that this survey, this t-shirts, in this case, it's the t-shirt survey, but let's say it's a survey that I've linked to a tiny URL that I want to use a lot. So actually, Cameron and I have an example of this. We have a survey that we use for our Canvas trainings that we use over and over again. And we don't want to change the link because we got a great tiny URL and I don't want to have to change a new one every single time I do a survey. So I'm trying to reuse the exact same survey shell and link and make all that work. So how you do that, go to responses and make sure that you have created your response within Sheets, because what this does is takes all of your responses and puts it into Google Sheets. And I've already created mine, but I'll open it up for you here. So you'll see everybody's response here. So you've got that artifact. Now, if I go in here, now I'm under responses. And if I go to the skinny snowman under responses, so not the one up here by send, this is where I made a copy. But if I want to delete the responses here, then I'm going to hit the skinny snowman there. And I won't actually do it because I like the data in here for demonstration purposes. But if I hit delete all responses, it will give me a confirmation window and say, hey, this can't be undone. And then it will pull out all the responses. So 2 ways, Allison, that you can reuse a form. If you don't have a link and you just need a new form with the same questions for a new group of people, then I would copy the form. If you have a short URL and you want to reuse the exact same form, then I would do this process that I just showed you. Because once you download the responses here into the Sheets, then this doesn't get erased when you erase the form. So you maintain your responses over here in Google Sheets, but you can use this tool for a whole new group of people. Elson, does that answer your question? Okay, if not, let me know, okay, my friend? All right, any questions on, let's see, let's go back to questions here. We just spent some time, I kind of went down a rabbit hole, but I like rabbit holes. We spent some time here on importing questions and videos and images. Is there, oh, you're welcome, Allison, happy to help. I've not seen any other questions on that, so I think we will, let me just double check my agenda here, guys, and go on to the next piece. All right, we talked about that. Duplicate. All right, let's go back to the skinny snowman up here at the top. So we jumped up here a little bit earlier with the skinny snowman and we went to make a copy. I want to walk through some of these other options that we didn't cover in the new users course. So you do have an undo function here that you can hit, and it's somewhat limited, but you can back things out. So if you, let's say you import 6 questions you didn't want to import, you can go and delete those individually, or you can hit undo and it will undo your last broad action. So not necessarily keystroke, but your last big move in forms. We talked about making a copy. Of course, like anything in Google, you can throw it in the trash. Here's to get a pre-filled link, I'll click on that. And it's gonna give me here this link to be able to send this out. Now, if I wanted to send this out, I could copy this URL up here and send it out to somebody to take the form. It's just another way to send the form. I could print the whole thing if I want to. Maybe there's a need that either I need a printed version or maybe I just want to make a PDF of it for one reason or another. By hitting print, you'll see you get all the questions, and this is the view from the user or the participant. So you're going to see things like, here's my checkmark grid. You're going to see all of those things from the participant view. It obviously won't have, it'll have pictures, but it won't have video that you can watch. It'll just have the thumbnail there that you can print. But I'm going to cancel that because I don't even have a printer at home anymore. Let's see, here's where you can add collaborators. We talked about that before, but I will touch on that just briefly because again, here's where you can control who can collaborate. So if somebody is a collaborator, my friends, remember that means that they can adapt your form, they can see results, they can send it, they act just like you can act in the form. So you add people right down here by just adding their email, and you can also send them a message if you want and click send. We're all, I'm sure, very used to doing this in sharing docs, same kind of thing. Once you've added them, then you can see here, I've got my pencil, so I can decide here if I want him to be the owner. If maybe I'm leaving my school and I want to pass on my stuff to somebody else, I can make him the owner. But then also you can decide different permission levels, or you can remove the user. So if Cameron leaves my school and we're no longer working together, I hit the X and Cameron is no longer in my form. I'm going to cancel that instead of save it, but note it gives you an option here to save changes. I'm going to leave Cameron in my form. I'm going to go back here real quick to my skinny snowman. Script editor, I'm not going to worry about today. I'm going to go on add-ins here at a different place before, but I do want to talk about preferences, and this also leads to the setting and the gear. So I'm going to start with preferences right here. If I click on preferences, it's going to give me a couple of default options that I can choose for my form. So sometimes there's value in collecting email addresses, and sometimes there's not. But if you want to enforce somebody collecting, or collecting their email address as they complete it, here's where you can force that. One of the places, and then here's where also you can make all your questions required if you wanted to. I generally don't use this. I usually do it in the questions themselves. But again, I think that's more of a dealer preference. So you've got a couple of default settings here that you can look at. I'm going to cancel this for a moment, because then that leads me up. Those are some of the default settings, but if I move to the left across the top here, to the left of my send button, I have this settings gear, and I'm going to open this up. So this is another place where you can collect email addresses. So this is for the form itself. Here's where also you can set a response receipt. So if you collect email addresses and if you select response receipt, then you can decide, you can make this, the participant can select a receipt, or you can say, nope, send it always, all the time. And I think it just depends on the information you're collecting and what you want your participants to have when they're done with the form. So when I use forms for like registration for events, I always select email, I always select response, and then I always say send the email all the time. Because for instance, if you're signing up for an event that I'm running, I want you to remember that you signed up for it and what options you selected. And I don't want you to have to contact me and wait for my response. So anyway, so there are times you want to do that and there are times you don't. Of course, I'll leave that up to you, but that can be a very powerful tool at certain times. Also here, so forms defaults to letting people complete the form more than one time. So again, depending on how you're using it, if you're using it as a formative piece, say for your kids in instruction, you may want them to take it multiple times or to use it multiple times. But if you're doing a formal survey or, like I said, registering for an event or something, you might want to limit it. But here is where you limit that. And then also here you can select, do you want your respondents to be able to edit their response after they've submitted it? And do you want them to see a summary chart? So again, be careful on this. If you're using forms as an option for assessment, you don't want everybody else to see what everybody else is scoring. And you may not want people to edit, but I know, like for instance, when I do feedback surveys, I will often, like if I run a professional learning or professional development, I'll do a feedback survey and I will often let people see what's in there because I like to be transparent about what people are sharing and how they're recommending that I can improve or, improve or increase my abilities as a facilitator. So sometimes I'll leave that open. It just kind of depends, right? But you can change those options right here, but make sure you hit save. So if I say collect email addresses, if I just click off this page without hitting save, it's not going to require that. It's not going to save that. So you'll notice when I hit select email addresses, now it is added to the very top of my form a required question. So the first thing anybody that completes this form is going to do is they're going to have to add their email addresses. So if I see what that looks like for the participant, they can't go on, they can't do anything else until they enter that email address and go from there. So I'm going to close that for the moment and go back to settings because there's a couple other tools here in the last few minutes, guys, that I want to show you. The next one is presentation. So again, depending on how you're using this and the audience that you're using it for, you can show a progress bar. So if you have 5 sections, say in your survey, if I select progress bar, it's going to have a big bar at the bottom and it's going to go, hey, you finished now after the first page 20% and then 40%. So that's how you can show the progress bar. And again, sometimes people like that, sometimes people don't, totally up to you. Also, you can shuffle the question order. So especially if you're thinking about this as a quiz or just some kind of feedback and learning and you don't want kids looking over everybody else's shoulder, shuffling the question order is a fabulous way to do that. And then finally, sometimes you want them to submit it more than once, so you can decide if you have the link on there where when they get to the end, they can circle back and take it again. You can also change your response for a confirmation. So after they submit, this is the text that they're going to see. So if you want to change that, you can also change that. And again, you want to save your settings down here. And I see here we have a question, what is a get pre-filled link? So that's what I showed over before over here on the Skinny Snowman. It's another way to send your survey. So the last piece up here, guys, is in quizzes. So I'm going to click on quiz. So if you have a form and you want to use that form as an assessment tool, then you want to come here and say, make this a quiz. This is a really cool tool, my friends. I'm going to do a sidebar here real quick just for our friends. If you are on and you are one of our districts in Canvas, then I'm going to tell you that, remember, we told you in our Canvas trainings, Forms does not work in Canvas because Canvas wants you to use their quiz function because that's linked directly to their gradebook. So, but if you aren't using Canvas, this is a great tool to do some assessments for your students. So I'm going to make this a quiz, and then I can decide here how I want the results to go. Is it going to be immediate or after? So that's all could depend on you, right? Sometimes you want that to go out right away. Sometimes you want people to wait a little bit. And then you can decide here what the respondents can see as well. So I'm going to save this because I've now made my t-shirt quiz or my t-shirt survey a quiz. And I want to show you what's changed. First of all, these questions that have open answers, you'll notice nothing has changed. There's no right or wrong answer to your name. There's no right or wrong answer to the date or the time. But when we get down here to this next question that has a linear scale, now we've got this option here for an answer key, and there are a number of points. So I'm going to click on answer key right here in the bottom left, and it is going to open up some options for me to edit. So I can select here how many points it's worth, and I can add answer feedback if I want to. So this is where I could tell them what the right answer is. I could add a video here if I wanted to click in, or add a YouTube video or a resource for them. I can also attach a file here, same way. So, and I can adjust the points and then hit done. Now we get to, so that's for the linear. So remember, a linear, there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, but it does allow you to give them some feedback and give points if they complete the question. So let's go down here to our multiple choice check grid, for instance, and let's click on answer key here, and you'll see I can choose the correct answers. So now I'm going to say these are actually the correct answers, and let's just say it's this. And you'll notice, remember, I told you in these grids, each line is a different prompt or potentially a question. I can control the points for each question. So the second question might be much more important or be worth more points than the first one. I can leave them for 0 if I want to, just for feedback as well. And when I'm done, I hit done. And the other piece I want to show you is up here on the top right. I'm going to make my screen a little bigger. Once I made this a quiz, now it's tracking the total points for me. So every time I change the point value, you'll see down here, now this question that I just worked with is worth 8 points, where before it was 0. So same thing on any of these questions. Once I click on it, I can add points to it and move forward from there. So really cool option if you want to make your form a quiz. I'm going to actually turn that off, and I'm going to pause for a minute. Are there any questions about quizzes and the functionality and benefits and just how to make a form into a quiz? I'm not seeing anything in chat, but I'll just pause for a minute and encourage you to kick around and make your form a quiz and drop any questions you may have into the chat. So we'll pause here for just a moment. All right, I'm not seeing any additional questions in the chat here, guys. Let's see. You have to add on. Let's see. I remember about 4 years ago, you had to have an add-on to be able to grade for quizzes on Google Form. What you show us is an update to forms has already been done, and we have to add it on. Thank you very much. You're right. Back in the day when this first came out, this was an add-on. It is now standard with Google Forms. It's part of the G Suite for Education, and it's already there for you. So super helpful tool there. Great question. Thank you for asking that. The last thing that I want to show you in our advanced training today, and I'm so glad that you asked that about add-ons, because I want to talk about add-ons. We haven't talked about that yet. So up here in the top left, I'm going to make it bigger. I have my icon here for add-ons. Now, if you're newer to Google, add-ons are, so Google, how to explain add-ons? I think the best way is to make a comparison between Google and Microsoft and I want to be very intentional here. I'm not trying to promote one project or one platform over the other. But when Microsoft pushes out a platform and you purchase it, say for instance in Word, it has all the bells and whistles, everything you could possibly imagine for Word. You just have to know where it is. But if you want to make it into a form, or if you want to make it into a mail merge, it's all already in there, and you just have to know how to do that. Perfectly fine. That's one way of designing the platform. The way Google has approached it is they make a base platform for docs and for sheets and for slides and for forms, and then you can add what you want. And the reason they do that is because this is a web-based browser, and if you were trying to run Microsoft prior to Office 365 off of a browser tab, it would take forever to load. So it allows the user, in this case with add-ons, you can grab the tools that you want, and then when you're done using them, or if you stop using them, you can also take them off. I'm not going to get deep into how to manage add-ons today, but I am going to just show you briefly. So if I click on add-ons here, toward the top left, it's to the left of my color palette, as I like to call it, and you'll see I get a number of add-ons. There are a number of add-ons that are already added to my profile. If you want to add additional add-ons and you want to go to the Chrome Web Store, I'm going to open a new tab there. Thought I had this open already, guys. So from the Chrome Web Store, I can search right up here, extensions and add-ons. So if I want to type in something for forms, I can find all kinds of different add-ons and what I want to do in forms and read all about them. I'm not going to go into a lot of these options today, but if I add this to Chrome, then once I add it to Chrome, so if I decide, hey, you know what, I want Find Your Forms, and I add it, then once I go back to my forms over here, it'll appear right here. So these are add-ons that I have selected and I have used already within my forms experience here recently. So so the one that I want to show you just briefly is Form Limiter. So it's going to, when I select Form Limiter, it's going to say, what do you want to do? You want to set a limit, or do you want to press help? I'm going to set a limit. And what I love about Form Limiter is it gives me some options. So we had a question earlier about, hey, can I set, is the only way to turn off responses, is the only way I can do that if I actually just turn off the responses? Well, that's one way to do it, but you can also set different things here. You can set date and time. So with Form Limiter, I can say, hey, this form is going to be available from this date to this date, and you'll see my calendar even pops up down there. So I can say it's going to be available from 5/8, and you can have a time in here. And I won't set a time right now, but you can make your forms or make your assessments, make your quizzes earlier, and then you can set that here to be able to open automatically. So a number of different ways. You can set the number of form responses. So let's say, for instance, you were taking signups for, heck, I don't know, let's say it's the staff Friday potluck. And you know that you need 20 people to bring foods, and I'm going to say, or bring different foods, or to sign up. When responses are greater than 20, it'll stop taking forms. So it'll lock it down for you. So different ways you would use that. And then finally, the spreadsheet cell value. This really gets into how you're using things and formulas with Excel, so I'm not going to go into that right now. But this is one of my favorite tools in Forms, is this Form Limiter, and I got that by just going to the web store. Now, I've had Form Limiter for a long time, so it might be standard now, to be honest with you. A lot of people use it, and I know Google's really good about adding a lot of that stuff. So. All right, so I'm going to pause here, guys, before I wrap up. We have covered a number of different topics. We went through advanced toolbar options and tools. We looked at the advanced questions. We looked at add-ons, and we also looked at how to make a form into a quiz and a couple of different ways to make copies. Before I sign off, I would throw out there one more time, if there are any questions that I could answer, please throw them in the chat. I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen for a moment here. So I'll hang on for a few minutes if anybody has any questions. If you want to stay for a moment or two, I do have another meeting that starts in a little bit, but I have a couple of minutes. But I want to thank you all for coming today. And I also want to thank you for being willing to take on this challenge of distance learning. Everything changed right about March 18th, and so appreciate your willingness to learn new skills to help connect with your kids. Especially in the first day of Teacher Appreciation Week, I extend to you all of my appreciation and respect and admiration for the work that you're doing. So thank you all very much. Thank you for being here. And like I said, I'll hang on for a few minutes if anybody has any questions. So have a great Monday. And I would be remiss with Star Wars in the background if I didn't close by saying, Happy Star Wars Day. May the Force be with you. Take care, my friends. Oh, Robert, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We aim to please, my friend. We aim to please. Thanks for being here all day. Come back tomorrow. Let's see. I was trying to add the form limiter ad, but I was unable to do it. Let's take a look at that real quick. Let me share my screen again here. If you could hang on for just a moment. And let's see, is there an easy way to copy a form into Canvas? Trish, I can address that one right now. Forms don't work in Canvas. That's the only piece of Google that doesn't. And it's because everything that you can do in a form, you can do in the quiz generator in Canvas, and including auto grading and points and all those things, and it drops into your Canvas gradebook automatically. So that's the one piece of Google that does not match into Canvas. And that's why. But if you have a form that you like, you can copy and paste everything right out of that form, select it all and drop it into the quiz. And then remember, once it's in the quiz generator in Canvas, then Immersive Reader works on it, which opens up all those accessibility and literacy support tools. So you could also link it and send them out to the form. Of course, you could still do that. But I would recommend that you try to get it into quizzes. But I also understand we're kind of under the gun right here. And if you need something to go out, tomorrow, you might need to just link that or stay in Google Classroom for that solution. All right, let me see if we can figure out, oh, Cameron's here. Hello, Cameron. We're just wrapping up and I'm trying to answer a question on form limiter. So let me share my screen again real quick, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. Let's see. All right, let's get back here and let's make that big. And so is everybody looking at, are you all seeing my screen? Should be seeing on my form now. So let's go back. Let's see, untitled form, questions, paragraph, good. So, well, oh, I must be in the actual take the form field. All right, hang on, guys. I'm gonna have to grab a new Google tab. I must have closed too many things, too many tabs, right? All right, let me go to Drive real quick. And I will open up, actually I need to shift over, oh, here it is, good, KCSOS Forms. All right, so now I'm back on Forms, and isn't that interesting, my add-on piece, there it is. God, it made me nervous there for a minute. So again, when you have it, it's here, but form limiter, and I think the question was, is it in the web store? You had a hard time getting it. So I'm gonna go to the Chrome web store again, and I'm gonna select the web store, and I'm gonna search here. No results. So, okay, so let me go back to chat here real quick and open that up. So you found no results for form limiter. And when you go on to your form, it's not automatically under here? That's the only question. I wonder if you click on add-ons, then maybe, like I said before, maybe that's one that's just automatically in Canvas. Like I said, I'd gotten mine a long time ago. So,
oh, so I found it in the web store. It's just I'm having trouble because I'm there already. It has this little it says Forms add-on, but when I like hover over it, it says this app can be used directly with Forms to improve your productivity. It's not allowing me to like actually download it or install it. That's
got it. Okay. So I'm guessing then that is probably, are you logged in under your district domain or under your personal domain?
District domain.
Okay, there might be some limitations on what they're allowing people to get off of the Chrome Web Store. So in that case, I would reach out to IT and explain what you're looking for and why, because they're going to be able to control your access there.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for asking that question. I appreciate that. All right. Okay, guys. Well, we're down to just a few participants, so I think I'm going to go ahead and call it a day here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And once again, thank you all so much for your time today. I appreciate you. And we hope to see you on our next Zoom. Let me grab our schedule for tomorrow while I have a captive audience. We are training on Canvas grading at 9 tomorrow. Newcomer for Google Classroom at 10:30. Experienced Google Classroom at 1 o'clock, and also how to customize content in Canvas at 1 o'clock. So we hope to see you in those as well. So thank you, everybody. Have a fabulous day. See you on the Zoom.